Hi, Jonquil, have you done your Christmas shopping yet?
No, don't ask me. Do you know, half of people start their Christmas shopping in October,
Really?
and there's a quarter who do it even before that. But I'm in the remaining group that hasn't quite got my act together yet. So yeah, I'm a December shopper.
Have you started?
I don't really do any. Well, I send off for a few mail order things, but I hate the shops at Christmas.
Yeah, too many people,
Yep,
far
absolutely.
too much sort of pressure of and intensity of advertisements
Yeah.
and gimmicks.
And do they know it's Christmas?
But I went to a shopping centre last weekend. I was really surprised because I was expecting it to be heaving, and it wasn't at all. And it's about £1 in every 5 now that we actually spend online, isn't it, rather than in the shops. So maybe Christmas shopping is not as bad as you think.
I said mail order, that's quite old-fashioned, isn't it? I'd just go online, yes.
Yeah.
Email order.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
It's so difficult these days, though. I think it's because people are kind of better off. I mean, I know we've had austerity, but if you go back several decades, you know, you could buy people quite ordinary things for Christmas, whereas now they seem to have all those ordinary things, and you're always racking your brains for something different and exceptional, aren't you?
Do you think there's a lot of pressure to spend large amounts of money, get increasingly sort of fantastic presents for loved ones? Is it all just about consumption and consumerism
Yeah,
now?
I think it is, and there's a lot of emphasis now on experience, isn't there, rather than goods. So
Yeah.
there's all these, you know, buying people afternoon tea at some stately home or whatever. So Christmas has definitely changed, hasn't it?
When did gift giving become part of Christmas then?
Gosh, I don't know. Do you?
Well, thinking back to Dickens's time, because I've been writing about A Christmas Carol, and I don't think there's any gift giving in that other than presenting food.
There's
Right,
feasting,
yes.
there's the
Feasting,
idea
yeah.
of sharing food with one another.
Yeah, that's quite an ancient idea, that one, isn't it, I guess?
Well, I think gifting's an ancient idea as well. I mean, even if Christmas has lost its overtly Christian sense, maybe there's still a sacred sense in feasting and gift giving, and maybe that's the sacred bit that's left of Christmas amidst all the sort of flurry and the urgency to consume as much as possible.
St. Nicholas, wasn't he considered the patron saint of children? And aren't there long traditions of him being a sort of gift bearer?
Yeah, I think his Saint's Day was actually quite in early December.
Yeah, it was 6th, wasn't it?
Yeah.
6th of December.
And then, like other things, it got kind of moved around to fit in with existing
And Pepsi
festivals.
Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently it was, you know that verse, "'Twas the night before Christmas," that was written, I think, in 1822, 23, something like that. And apparently that was the first time that St. Nicholas had been portrayed as being a kind of rather jolly, kind of plump, you know, happy person. Whereas before, of course, St. Nicholas was quite austere in some ways.
Serious figure.
Yeah.
And that was an American poem, The Night Before Christmas.
It was, wasn't it? Yes,
And I think it got quite influential across here as well.
Yes, yeah, and that was very much the influence then on Coca-Cola, who had this, image actually drawn of the Father Christmas that we know today in his red suit and everything. Yeah.
But he's a fantastic figure, despite his links with with Coke and so forth, because, you know, a magical being doing magical things with magical animals, going all around the world doing all this incredible stuff. We live in this technically advanced consumerist culture, and yet we're telling stories about magic and sharing food, and I don't know, to me there's something special about Christmas.
Yeah.
It is a special time of year, distinct from all the other times.
I wonder if that's the same for younger generations. I mean, I certainly still
I
feel
hope
it
so.
special. And I suppose that's because of the culture I was brought up in. You know, you sort of take that culture with you, don't you, as you grow up. It's part of your identity. So, yeah, for me, I think Christmas will always feel special, quite regardless of the commercialism, which, you know, I kind of put to one side almost. You know, that's not what Christmas is about somehow.
Is it because of some of the traditions around Christmas that you treasure? Or just
Yeah.
having some time off.
I think so. Well, I think it's also that being with family, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is important.
Yes.
We're all so busy these days. We never seem to really have that time to. I mean, I do see my children from they're grown up. They're in their 30s, but it always feels a bit pressured. It's kind of like the hour before they're off somewhere else, or I have to catch a train. Or, Whereas Christmas, you've got that more relaxed time together as a family, and that seems to me to be very much the essence of Christmas.
I think that was something that Dickens popularised in his work, the idea of Christmas round the domestic hearth. Not necessarily all that Christian, but I mean things like telling ghost stories round
Yes.
a roaring fire, that kind of thing. And that's still quite an element in Christmas entertainment.
Well, ghost stories have come back in fashion, haven't they?
Very much so,
Yeah.
very much so. Huge folklore revival going on right now, yeah. I mean, for me, I one of the things I like about Christmas is putting a tree in my front room. I mean, it's a pretty random thing to do, but it's a sort of suddenly having a different relationship with the natural world. And my wife and I were talking about whether we're going to have a fake tree, but no, we
Doesn't feel right,
must
does it?
have a real tree.
With roots?
Well, unfortunately, not rooted, yeah. But so I can't replant it, which is a shame. But
Yeah.
That was a German tradition, wasn't it? Bringing trees indoors.
into the home, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it got quite popular in Victorian Britain when the Queen
Yes, it was Victoria.
had a tree,
wasn't it?
because
Yes.
Prince Albert
Yeah.
introduced that.
Do you know the average household spends £30 a year on Christmas decorations? How's that for a useless fact?
I thought it might be more than that,
Yeah, me too.
with lights and so on.
Yeah, no, it's it's an average, isn't it? So there are going to be some who obviously do spend a lot more, but that's dwarfed by spending on presents. That's £475 a year. That's quite
Each person spends that.
each household.
Oh,
So
right.
it's the average household spends that much. It's
Wow.
quite a lot, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose when you think about how that is weighted towards households with young children,
Yes.
then
Yeah.
you can understand, why all those toys are on display and everything. And that goes on for a long time before
Yeah, it's pest of
Christmas, doesn't
power,
it?
isn't it? I was looking at some statistics there, and it's quite interesting because it's about half of households will spend more than £100 on each child for Christmas presents. But if you look back to, say, the 80s, then common presents then might have been, say, a bicycle, a BMX bike or something like that. And the cost then was about £45, £50. Well, if you scale that up by inflation, you're there at that sort of £100, £120 mark. So maybe the amount people spend on children has actually been more stable than we think. It looks these days as if they get really extravagant presents and lots of them. But maybe that spending, in relative terms, has been fairly stable.
Oh, that's not what I'd have expected,
No.
actually.
No, me neither, no.
I'd have thought Christmas just goes on getting more and more extravagant. Certainly on the food side, it looks to me as if, people just buy more and more. I go around the supermarket with my trolley, I think, and look at other people's trolleys, and I think, how many people are they having to their house for Christmas, and how long is it going to take them to get through all
The
that?
other thing that amazes me is the food advertisements. So every year something comes out that's a variation, that's the new must-have for Christmas. So I don't know, there are some amazing Christmas puddings around these days, aren't they, that are stuffed with all sorts of strange things. They're not ordinary Christmas puddings anymore. And I think it's the retailers trying to convince us they're premium products, and so we'll spend more rather than just buying the ordinary product that's not got much of a profit margin on.
But it's still got to be within the tradition in some way. It's got to be a Christmas pudding.
Yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think so.
But with some variation, some new ingredients, some new
Yeah.
twist on the tradition to make it more original or innovative or something.
That's right. I mean, that's all about the power of marketing, isn't it? It's convincing us that this is the lifestyle we need to buy into.
But you could have Christmas pudding any time, really, couldn't you? It's just
I wouldn't. I don't really like it. It's far too rich for me.
No, it
but
wouldn't
preparing
be the same.
the Christmas meal, it's become, you know, such a big thing in itself. The people who actually have to do it, you know, get very worked up about it sometimes, don't they? And all the preparation.
Yeah.
But again, it's about setting those norms, isn't it? There are so many cookery programs these days that if your Christmas dinner doesn't look like MasterChef, then you're really nobody, are you?
No one's going to eat it. Yeah.
There's a lovely description in A Christmas Carol of Bob Cratchit's family, you know, Scrooge's clerk, having their Christmas dinner, and they're obviously very poor, and they've got you know, a bird that will scarcely feed 2 people, let alone parents, and I think it's about 6 children, and a tiny pudding, but they're all enthusiastic about it, and they keep commenting on the quality of the cooking and how delicious it all is, and there's this contrast between the reality and what they're trying to make of it. I think Dickens's point is that it's the company that really makes it the feast.
Yes, well, that's right.
And of course they get a lovely big turkey from Scrooge at the end when he's converted and thinks that Christmas is no longer quite such a bar humbuggy thing.
Yeah, well, it's like we were saying, it's all about family, isn't it, really? Anyway, I suppose I ought to go and actually do my Christmas shopping. Really nice to see you all.
Well, happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Ja,